Yeah, there's that. Yeah, so. Yes.
Meeting to order.
Good evening. Welcome to the September 2025 Portsmouth SSAB board meeting. My name is Eric Roberts, part of the support staff here for the advisory board. I'll be facilitating tonight's meeting. Let's start with an introduction of those that will be participating at the table tonight. So we're here with Sean.
Sean Cabrera, Ohio Department of Health. Tom Schneider, Ohio EPA.
Grace Stutler, Ohio EPA.
Angel Glass, SSAB.
Tanya Brown, SSAB.
Mike Milam, SSAB.
Dave Adams, SSAB.
Beth Workman, SSAB.
John Hemmings, SSAB.
Chandler Grooms, SSAB.
Lisa Piper, SSAB.
Herman Potter, Vice Chair of the SSAB.
Donna Carson, Board Chair, SSAB.
Jeremy Davis, Department of Energy.
Greg Simonton, Department of Energy.
Outstanding. So most of you will recognize that we have some new faces at the table. And this is an exciting new thing. We had folks that were appointed in August, I believe, that was the time frame. We didn't have to have a meeting that month, and they were appointed to the board. They have been with us one official day. We did a little bit of an orientation and a site tour, and thank Jeremy and Melissa Green for helping pulling that together. And so we asked that everyone extend a little grace. You know that we drink from a kind of a fire hose from around here, like a lot of information, a lot of different topics, a lot of acronyms and specialty work. So where we can, let's fill in the gaps. Let me encourage Angel, Tanya, Mike, David, Chandler, if you have questions, this is the time. Like, feel free to ask them, and we'll fill in. If we use an acronym, remind us that you don't know what that is, and if you understand the acronym and don't know what it relates to, that's okay too. Ask, and we'll fill in the gaps there. We'll make you as comfortable as possible. Let me welcome you to the advisory board as full-time members. I guess also in that, I should point out that Beth, John, Herman, Lisa, and Donna were reappointed to another 2-year term, so that all came at the same time. So it was appointments were all done at the same time. So congratulations on getting 2 more years with us and getting to continue your service to the community. And we're thankful for that. All right, as we look at the agenda going forward, a couple things. We're going to do DFO comments and then federal coordinator comments, liaison comments. That references Ohio Department of Health and Ohio EPA. We do have an election tonight for leaders, board chair and vice chair, filling out our executive committee with 3 at-large members. And then we have the work plan to look at for this year. And we'll do public comments. We welcome the folks that are here with us tonight. Let me encourage you, if you would like to speak during the public comment portion, following federal regulations, we have 15 minutes set aside for that. You need to sign up on the sheet back in the corner and designate, click the little box that says you would like to speak, and we'll make sure we hold time for you at that point. All right, from the board, any adjustments or amendments to the agenda? All right. Jeremy, the floor is yours, sir.
All right, well, good evening. As Eric said, thank you to all of our new board members for being here tonight. So we'll start with a Portsmouth site update, just kind of as an awareness for the new board members. Obviously, this is a picture from the south side of the plant looking north. Kind of gives you an overview. This picture is probably 3 or 4 months old, but definitely can start seeing some progress there at the 326 building when we started taking up some of that slab. So let's go to the next slide. So one of the things that we have been talking a lot about was the site reuse. So the site proper was approximately a little over 3,700 acres. And we've transferred around 350 acres to the Southern Ohio Diversification Initiative. or SODI, which is, basically a 10% reduction of the original footprint. The property transfers have been conducted. I'll talk about the parcels just a little bit. Parcel 1 is what you see in the yellow, which was approximately 80 acres. That has been transferred to SODI, which I believe they have been sold to another third party. And then parcel 2 is the parcel you see in the orange or red, whichever color you want to argue it is. That's approximately 226 acres. That's been transferred to SODI as well, and I believe they have commitments for purchase of that property as well. We have successfully completed the transfer of parcel 3 as well, which is in the green, and that kind of, as you can tell, kind of starts providing that contiguous landmass that is so beneficial for reindustrialization at the site. That's approximately 48 acres. Parcel 4 is what you see in the, I'll say, light blue, dark blue. I don't know what you call it, but it's blue of some shade. And that parcel, we hope to have the transfer complete by the end of this calendar year. Now, there have been additional parcels requested by Southern Ohio Diversification Initiative. However, those parcels will have to continue to be evaluated until we're ready for that transfer. So, next slide. So another thing that's going on right now at the site is a large contract transition. So in order to focus the deactivation and demolition contractor primarily on the deactivation and demolition of the buildings, we've separated out some of the utility and operational work into a separate contract. And that contract is being taken over by the operations and site mission support, or OSMS. So that OSMS contract was put out for bid, and it was won by a company called Mid-America Conversion Services. The previous contractor was Mid-America Conversion Services. The winning contractor was Mission Conversion Services Alliance. As you can tell, it's a lot of the same companies that originally operated the Duff 6 plant, or the depleted drain hexafluoride deconversion plant. And they are taking over the operations of the Duff 6 plant, as well as a lot of the utility operations on site. So the previous D&D contractor was Fluor FBP, or Fluor Babcock and Wilcox Portsmouth. That is now transitioning to a company called Southern Ohio Cleanup Company, or SOCO, and they will take over both on October 1st. So we're kind of in the tail end of our transition period. The contractors come in for a 120-day contract transition period. They go through processes of preparing to take over the operations and cleanup at the site. That will be completed on September the 30th. The new contractor will take over on October 1st. DOE goes through this process of verifying that they're ready to take over, and then they will take over operations on October 1. So that is going well. All indications that will be a somewhat seamless transition. And then you will still have a company called Northwind Dynamics, who will continue to be the infrastructure and site maintenance contractor. So they will continue to do the grounds maintenance, road clearing, mowing, and some of the facility maintenance. Next slide. So we are getting ready to start the demolition of our X333 building, which is the building that you see on the upper right-hand side of the screen. So in order to prepare that building for demolition, we went through an extensive amount of what we call deactivation, which is where we go into the facility. We remove a lot of the process gas equipment. It gets evaluated to ensure that it meets waste acceptance criteria for the cell. Things that are not WAC compliant will have to be shipped off site. We also remove a lot of the hazardous materials from the building in order to prepare it for deactivation. As a part of that deactivation process, we also isolate utilities and the infrastructure from the building. and then we proceed with what we call the pre-demolition. Pre-demolition is just that. It's the deactivation piece is done. Pre-demolition is building a berm around the facility, which collects a lot of our dust suppression water during the open air demolition. We also spray the building with fixative on the inside and the outside of the building. We also remove a lot of the ground obstructions around the facility, because our method is to not do this demolition by hand, but to actually go in with large pieces of equipment and dismantle the building strategically using that equipment. But one of the things that we have to do prior to the demolition, which is a very extensive hands-on process, is the removal of the transite panels on the outside of the building. Those are basically a 3x5 concrete asbestos impregnated panel. Those get sprayed with fixative. That's why you see that nice blue hue on those panels. Each one of those panels is removed by hand and taken off the building to prepare the building for structural demolition. So about almost 16,000 panels on the X333 building. We have to remove about 30% of those before we can actually start the structural demolition. What happens is we remove them from one end of the building, we start in that building, and we proceed to the opposite direction. And those crews, it will take about a year to remove all the asbestos panels off that building. So we actually hope to start the structural demolition next Wednesday. We're doing a lot of the final waste acceptance criteria sweeps of the building. So the contractor goes into the building, they verify everything that needs to be removed prior to demolition has been removed. DOE then comes and does an independent verification walk down of the same status. So we're proceeding to do some of those walk downs now. And then once everybody is confident, we will notify the state, and then we will start the structural demolition of the 333 building. So once the structural demolition starts, we'll also start the debris and downsizing and load out, which is where we size reduce that building demolition debris to meet the waste acceptance criteria to be placed into the on-site waste disposal facility, or the OSWDF. And we do that to ensure that we get the correct compaction, and also place that with some of that contaminated soil from our groundwater and plume excavations, so that we can ensure the integrity of those cells in the future. Next slide. So this is kind of where we're at with the 333 building. This is a picture from just a few days ago. You'll notice this is the west and north side of the building. You're looking at the northwest corner of the facility. And you'll notice we have removed the panels from basically the first 2.5 sections of the building. The sections you can kind of see by that vertical or that horizontal line that runs across the building. But our hope is to continue, or to start on the southwest corner of the building, proceed east and north at the same time with the start of that structural demolition. Now, the way that we kind of protect the asbestos workers who are removing the transite panels, once the structural demolition starts, they will go to a night shift. So, the transite panels will be removed at night, and then during the day, we'll proceed with the structural demolition. So you'll see the berm area around the facility where the water is collected. There's also a conveyance line that pumps to the integrated leachate, or the integrated water treatment systems on the south side of the plant, and we treat that water before it gets discharged. You also notice a new trailer there on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. That's a boundary control station. That's where our project workers will go in and out of that project area to proceed with that work. So we are about 34% complete with the transite panel removal, as we'll continue to proceed with that panel removal until we're able to start the structural demolition. And we are using some very unique specialty equipment, high reach equipment with shears to go ahead and start dismantling that building. All right, next slide. So this is an aerial photo of the on-site waste disposal facility. I got my nice little laser pointer here. So over here on this side, you have cells 1, 4, and 5. So this is where the material from the X326 building was placed. This cell one is almost at full capacity. I think it's around 94, 95% full. So this is kind of a similar topography as what you'll see. So what this is this is a protective cover of dirt, and then they'll come back and start placing the capping material in the future. You'll notice we still have this catchment area. This is where we collect the water from the on-site waste disposal facility. It's then transferred into these valve houses that you see here on the right side of the screen. That water is then piped to the south side of the plant as well to the integrated leachate treatment systems. So these are cells 2, 3, and 6. So cell 2 is now active. This is the catchment area for cell 2. You'll notice there is a protective layer of impacted soil or some of that contaminated soil that we've removed from the groundwater remediation. And that material is now receiving waste from the X333 demolition. So this is some of the transite paneling that's been taken off the building and placed in the cell. And then the cells 3 and 6 are actually undergoing active liner construction. Cell 3, which is this one, we have the secondary high-density polyethylene liner in place. It is undergoing 2 series of electrostatic testing, and now we're placing aggregate material to start backfilling and then place the primary liner. The secondary liner has been placed also in cell 6, and it's also had we've started the primary liner in cell 6. This is that geosynthetic clay layer that goes down before we put the high density polyethylene, and then we'll start placing the HDPE, and this will also get electrostatically tested, and then we'll start using the aggregate layer. So one of the things that we do with this geosynthetic clay is we actually cover that with the HDPE as we proceed forward to prevent that from getting wet. So our target is to have cells 3 and 6 by the spring of 2026. So I guess I can do this myself. So this is the X326 footprint that you're seeing here now. You'll notice that we've started to remove the 326 pad. There is a berm area located here where we've relocated a lot of that material. And we're actually going in and finishing up this 5-unit plume excavation that you see right here. So the yellow is what's already been completed. We're in what's called phase 6 of the 5-unit plume. We'll wrap that phase 6 up probably in the spring and start into phase 7. And that will provide a lot of the soil that we need to start placing the X333 building. So I think I mentioned this before, but these purple areas are the areas that will go in and do the soil excavations on to remove that soil and place that impacted material into the on-site waste disposal facility. Quick update on the depleted uranium hexafluoride deconversion facility. So I am happy to report that both ports and pad met their deconversion goals for the year. Ports met their goal back in July. They have actually exceeded this deconversion goal. I think they're around 516, 517. But that is the process by which we are taking that depleted material from all the cylinders stored around the site, deconverting it, and shipping the oxide off for disposal and recycling the HF. So very happy to report that they had a good year of deconversion, both at Portsmouth and Paducah. So, any questions from the board?
Hey, and Jimmy, you mentioned ports and pad. When you say pad, you mean
Paducah, excuse me, yes. Thank you.
No, that's good. So real quick, I know you talked about it with previous iterations of the board. When we're looking at this really major undertaking of contract transition, you're taking the same buckets of work and kind of shuffling ownership of it. Is there a very high-level explanation of the thought process behind that and why we're undertaking that large transition?
Yeah, so the thought process was to try to keep the deactivation and demolition contractor focused on those two objectives, right? And then you have the Duff 6 mission, who runs, some smaller utilities in their footprint, having them take over the utilities because their mission actually extends a little bit beyond the deactivation and demolition mission. So the thought process was behind it, separate those scopes of work out and allow the contractor who's performing the Duff 6 operations to continue with the utility operations because they'll be the ones operating those throughout their life cycle mission. So I think it's been a really good adjustment. It's taken a lot of coordination between the contractors and the department to kind of pull this off, but it really has been a good transition. So.
All right. Questions from you guys for Jeremy?
Will Ford be completely off the site after October 1, or are they playing some role there?
They are one of the teaming partners for SOCO. So there's Greg Wilka, it will continue to be the manager. But they just kind of reshuffled the deck of who their partners were on the competing contract. So Fluor stayed as well as some of the other contractors. So.
And it's kind of standard operating now for these contracts. You partner with multiple companies and you form an LLC. And is that pretty, am I saying that right?
Yeah, it's pretty standard that, they'll start a limited liability corporation to bid on the new contract. But the good news is there's been some contiguous management and leadership that are staying at the site. And that kind of helps the department when we make the decision to move forward, having the confidence that those folks understand and know the operations will continue to safely, execute the work.
Good question. Thanks,
Yeah,
Lisa.
very good question.
Other questions?
Do we expect any significant workforce changes?
No, so the way that we structured it, we basically just reshuffled the work and who was actually doing it. So as long as we could get the continued support from congressional funding, we'll continue. I mean, we have more work to do now than we've ever had. So another good question.
Thanks, Jim. Good question. Others? All right. If you think of any, write them down and we'll get some time with Jeremy and let you ask those later on in the evening. Call him middle of the night, whatever you, or however that works, right?
That's what I prefer.
Yeah, call Greg. He'll take the message and in the middle of the night. So speaking of Greg, federal coordinator comments.
Thank you, Eric. I just wanted to kind of answer a question that came up earlier, and that's what does the board do and, what happens when we make a recommendation? And so early on in the history of the board, we really had a lot of questions and frankly criticism about how you interact with the public. Want us to do some outreach and to do it in a different way, to come up with ideas on how we could reach more people in the community, as well as how do we talk to students, talk about opportunities. And so one of the things that came out of an early recommendation was our interaction with local students. And we came up with what a lot of people would call a science fair, but really we focus on the technologies and the work at our site. And we focus it on juniors in high school. And the reason that we selected that age group was they're far enough along in their studies that they could understand some of the complex processes that we have, but also they're at the point where they're making decisions. They're taking the ACT, for example. They're making decisions on, am I going to go to school? What am I going to go for? And we have coming up October 7th, 8th, and 9th, this latest edition of our Science Alliance. And it's a chance for our contractors to demonstrate some of the technologies that we use out there, some of the equipment that we use, talk about our processes, our history. We also have some regional partners from around Southern Ohio that bring in, some of the larger companies will bring in some of their material and talk to our students. We will have 29 schools from Southern Ohio and also one from Greenup, Kentucky, and 1,400 students will come through one day. We do 3 days. 1,400 students will have an opportunity to reach out and interact with. It's been, I think, a huge success across the department, probably one of the largest, if not the largest, outreach for education. The students have, I think, benefited sometimes more than they'll know. I always tell the story, and some of you have heard me say it before, and I'll apologize, but for the benefit of the new members, I remember about 5 years ago now, right after COVID, we were sitting in at lunch. We have a lunch tent, and there were 2 students that were talking to each other about, are you going to take calculus next year? And we have one of our engineers sitting there eating lunch, and they start engaging in a conversation. And our chemical engineer was able to describe to those 2 students how taking calculus in your senior year, and they did the typical thing. It was, I want to have fun next year. I don't really want to be saddled with a hard class. What's the benefit of it? Our engineer was able to walk them through how if you take calculus as a senior in high school, that you can start with engineering physics or calculus-based physics as a freshman. And he walked through how that one class in high school could save them a year of university. So as a parent with university-age kids, it's about 25 grand. So that's a big deal to me. But I also know that those kids probably, likely, most of our kids are first generation to college. They didn't have the opportunity to sit at their kitchen table and have that discussion with their parents. Their parents are probably like my parents were. You're going to college, period. That's the end of the discussion. They couldn't interact because they didn't go. And so I think these students, those 2, were an example of the benefit that this board came up with a recommendation. Department, get creative on how you do outreach with the community and especially the students to having management give our teams the ability to dream up this event that's grown into 1,500, 1,400 kids a year coming through it and getting some benefits, both what kind of jobs are out there in the real world, potentially what kind of jobs are right in my community. Why would I need to go to school? And then it also jobs you don't have to go to college for, but some of the trades, and put on demonstrations so that we're trying to open our students' eyes to what's possible, especially at that time when they're making decisions that could impact the rest of their lives. And I think that they've benefited. I think every year there are stories like what I saw myself and benefits those kids that go impossible to calculate the benefit, except, again, $25,000 a year. And by the way, I have 4 kids, so it's been an expensive venture. My last one has 2 years to go. So hopefully I live to see all the loans get paid off and they take care of me someday. But right now, I've got 1 more to go. It's coming up October 7th, 8th, and 9th. If you guys would like to come out and participate as a volunteer, which could be directing traffic, handing out snacks, making sure kids don't run off and do what kids do, keeping them herded in place or just to watch, you're more than welcome to. If you do, I'd ask you to reach out to Julie and she'll contact Melissa and we'll make sure that you can come out. You don't have to stay for the whole day, but it's usually about 9 o'clock till 1:30. And they go through 13 different stations. And we have different contractors. Like I said, Kenworth, for example, GE from over in Adams County has a station where kids go and talk to them. All the employers in the area have had difficulty getting people that are trained in technical fields or STEM fields. So they see a benefit to it. So we've had a real good, I think we started and expanded about 4 years ago with outside folks, and it's been a huge success.
Do you have a college?
Oh, yes, we also have, I don't know how many colleges, 8 or 9, we have an opportunity tent, and we have colleges come, they set up, they interact with kids, they go right into the tent as one of the stations, but also at lunch, they can go back in and talk to them. And so the universities come from, we've had from Kentucky and West Virginia into Ohio. The typical suspects, but also some ones that you wouldn't expect. We've had, Marshall and Moorhead, some of the furthest ones away. Cincinnati, Ohio State, Ohio University, Shawnee, of course, has a station also on robotics. So it's really, it's a great day. And even if the kids don't want to participate in all of it, just by osmosis, they're getting something out of it. So again, 7th, 8th, 9th of October, it's a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. If you want to come over and have your faith restored in the future of our country, because these kids are bright, you can do it on those 3 days and reach out to Julie or Cindy and we'll get you on.
Questions for,
Reach out to the public, we're here.
yeah, questions for Greg? Yeah, John?
Do the students sign up for that, or do they bring the whole junior class?
Different school, we invite anybody. Some schools will just bring some of the kids that are in, chemistry, physics, some of the advanced, some of them bring the entire class. It's up to the school though.
Okay.
There'll be a couple of large schools that'll bring 100+ kids. Mhm.
So one of the really exciting things, having seen this for a while, all DOE sites are facing like employment issues, right? Like the workforce is aging, and the next crop, like what are they, like other sites?
Okay.
Clearly, we have a young DOE staff, is what I'm saying. But looking for where the next crop is coming from, right? And so with Science Alliance, seeing kids that are being engaged as juniors, getting the chance to see what a career could look like on site or at some of the local employers, putting them in contact with colleges. You're seeing them go get a degree. Several of them end up interning on site, and we're starting to see folks be hired through those interns. So you're seeing this intentional flow of local kids coming back and staying here and knowing that there's an opportunity. Not just a job, but a career, and they can settle in and raise their family, and
That's a great point. Again, born out of a recommendation from this board in about 2012, came the Science Bowl, which is a competition. It's a national competition. We have a regional one. Our winner goes to DC and competes at the national level. We've had students that have participated in Science Bowl, Science Alliance, have received scholarship from contractors, have gone through internships, and are now working at the site, because we've been really engaged on this program, this comprehensive program, for about 12 or 13 years now. So it's really neat to see it come full circle. And if you come out those days, you'll see some of the future leaders of the site and the community.
all right. Thank you, Greg. All right, liaison comments. Sean?
I have no comments.
Yes. Tom?
I'll defer if Grace is going to provide.
Just since the last time we've all been together, continued our biweekly site oversight inspections, and we also had this summer our RCRA, Resource Conservation Recovery Act, an acronym, hazardous waste inspection, and there were no violations found.
Any questions for Sean, Tom, or Chris? All right, thank you guys, appreciate you being here. All right, so we're going to slide forward on the agenda to administrative issues. And we do have just a couple of things we need to move forward on as a board administratively. Election of chair and vice chair, filling out our executive committee, and then a review of the upcoming work plan. So let's start with the election of the chair. Over the last year, is that correct, Donna? 1 year, right? As chair? We, just so everyone to know the role of the chair, as you saw tonight, she has the ability to gavel the meeting, call it to order. She is both our primary contact when giving messages to the board, as well as DOE's primary contact. She does have the ability, if the media requests, she can speak on behalf of the board. She attends, both she and Herman attend national meetings. The fall one will be virtual, the spring one will be in person, where we meet with the other 7 boards that encompass the EMSSAB and talk about national issues. Yeah. all for the grand total of $0 extra, right? Just the joy of doing the work. So with that being said, we're looking for a nomination for someone to serve as chair of the board.
I nominate Donna.
I second.
All right, so are there other nominations?
I move we.
There's a hands down, nobody moves, it's like,
Don't make eye contact.
no eye contact, nobody said, all right, so, we have a motion to close the, and so, all those in favor of Donna serving as chair for the next year, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hey, congratulations, man. All right, so the vice chair, in the event that Donna cannot fulfill her, occasionally she travels, work, she gets sick, then Herman sets in and plays the role as chair at the meeting. He represents us at the national meetings as we discussed, and just coordinates our efforts to make sure that we're in good shape. Herman, is there anything I've missed that you've done over the last year that's,
I've been told I do nothing, so that's good.
all right, as long as we're all in agreement. All right, looking for nominations for vice chair.
I'll nominate Herman Potter.
All right,
Second.
all right, so second, are there other nominations?
I move we close nominations.
All right, seeing none. All those in favor of Herman serving as vice chair for the next year, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, nice. All right, Cindy, do you have our,
I like it, yeah.
all right, thanks. All right, so here's what we're going to do for the executive committee. Cindy has a list of the board members on your sheet that she's passing out. If you will scratch through for this purpose, just so we don't make any mistakes. Actually, let's do this. If you will go ahead and circle Donna and Herman on your sheet of paper. That's better than scratching through, just the optics, right? Put a big X over Herman's name and a frowny, but no, just kidding. If you will circle Herman and Donna, because we know they're going to serve on the executive committee. And then if you will choose 3 additional members, whoever, however, whatever strikes your fancy, alphabetical order, by height, experience, whatever we cannot go wrong with any group of 3 of you, I guarantee. So if you will choose the 3 you would like to represent the board on the executive committee. The executive committee handles the administrative issues, direction of the board. We get feedback from them on how meetings go, if we need to adjust presentation styles, meeting times, things of that nature. When we look at tours, we usually touch base with the executive committee. Sometimes pulling stuff together for the national meeting, we'll do that. So, will you collect those, please? Greg, would you be so kind as to tally the vote with Julie so that we have 2 sets of eyes? And we will do that.
I got my calculator.
Being from Pike County, normally if Greg counts a vote, he wins the election, but he wasn't listed, so.
Not yet.
Not yet. So amazingly, the write-in votes, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. All right, so while they're doing that, let's take a second and look at the work plan for the upcoming year. Cindy, can you pull the work plan up on the screen? We want to look at the calendar portion of that page. All right, so the work plan is our formal agreement with the Department of Energy, in this case, Jeremy. This is our plan for meetings and schedules, right? This allows him to budget and plan. In order to have a meeting, if you guys aren't aware, Melissa starts, what do we start? 45 days out before a meeting, building presentations, getting them approved, making sure that what we're saying is the right messaging and that it is, there's several layers to this as to how this goes. And plus there are certain protocols that we have to follow for federal meeting guidelines that we have to hit at various points, right? So she'll start about 45 minutes. Julie and Cindy will wrap up everything from this meeting in about 2 weeks. So it's really 60 to 65 days worth of timeline that we work on any meeting, and it kind of rolls throughout the year, going to different places. A couple of things to notice as you look at this work plan. There are some grayed out months, and that is intentional, right? We don't know what the federal budget is going to look like whenever or whatever it comes, right? It might be that we need to have a discussion on what the impact is from excess funds or a plus up. I guess excess is not the right word, right? Plus up, never excess, right? Or what are your priorities and where would you, recommend if, if there's a, right, a lot of times the board weighs in on that. Okay, this is what we think are, from a cleanup perspective, priorities to get us where we want to go. So there's area for us. Yeah, Mike?
What is Asher?
Okay, so great question. ASER, right? So in our gray month, I'll come right back to that, okay? And so you can see the gray months where we have time where we can squeeze something in if we need to. That's intentional. Plus Pike County in the first week in January, there's a good chance weather hits us. That's just historically that has happened. And so having a little breathing room there in January is not a bad thing. All right. So for the items we do have listed, in November, it is the annual site environmental report. Jeremy, can you Greg, can you give us a quick overview on what the ACER is? Either one of you? I saw you.
Yeah, so it's the ACER, Mike, is the annual site environmental report. So we've been collecting environmental monitoring data for about 30 years. We started doing the ACER report as a summary report that it also gets not only published and shared with the community, but we also do a student annual site environmental report summary program with Ohio University. And Ohio University works with 2 local schools in the Full County region, and they review the ACER data, and then they write a summary report and provide that to the department. And that's also been a really valuable another outreach that we've done in the community. I believe we've had a lot of the local schools participate in that. They get a chance to interact with Ohio University professors, and they get a lot of really neat experience understanding environmental data collection, and then they get an opportunity to have a poster session here at the Endeavor Center, and people from the public can come in and ask questions, and they can talk about what they know.
That's a great question, Mike. Thank you. So that will be in the November timeframe, right? OU is referring to Ohio University. They work with the Student ACER program. And then we're just kind of an overview of the environmental monitoring program. Right? In December, we'll talk about community commitment plans. We'll get together and have that discussion on where that works. In February, hopefully if things go well, we will do the federal site life cycle estimate. That is the plan, the big overview picture that looks at what it's going to cost to do the work at the site and the funding that's needed, the out-year plan, right? So it used to be called a baseline ballpark. They kind of changed the structure, but now it's federal site life cycle estimate. It is best guess on what it's going to cost to get the work done going forward on a year-by-year basis. That's important because it takes into account the recommendation the board has made on what your priorities are, right? And we'll talk about that and give you a chance to put up some of the priorities for the board in the past have been, continued worker health, recycling materials where possible, limiting what goes into the waste cell, providing, getting the D&D work done so that it can be transferred over for future reindustrialization. And just kind of representing some of the big community goals going forward. That's where we've provided that input to the Department of Energy. And then a funding and budget update is also in February. And again, that's pursuant to, at some point, the president will give, depending on continuing resolution and omnibuses, is that the plural? That's the word. If there's an omnibus or where we stand with the federal budget. So this topic is one that sometimes slides to match where we are from a federal perspective, right? But our plan is typically if things go structurally where they're supposed to, February is the right time. You're looking at April land transfer update.
That actually is also April 21st.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Greg was mentioning that if you look at the dates at the top of the page, April 21st will be the date for that, not April 20th. But we can make that correction. All right, so land transfer update. We're going to talk about material that has been cleaned or deemed clean and safe to transfer to SODOT, potential reindustrialization. What's been done, what's currently being done, where it's going, why it's happening, right? You guys know Jeremy's job is to clean up and work himself out of the job, right? So that there's nothing left here that he can do, and it's being transferred to another agency or to the, to SODOT. And that'll be a good day at some point when we get there, right? And then the Ohio University and the Southern Ohio Diversification Initiative have worked together on a master plan on what they're looking at for the site, on where they need utilities, where they want land, where they want this. And so us understanding their plan, where they're working for, it's important. Because as you provide advice and recommendations to Jeremy, it helps him, make those decisions going forward so we can all align as a community. All right, that gets us to June, which is the DUF6. That's the depleted uranium hexafluoride update. The DUF6 right now is the current. It's the active cleanup site, not cleanup. It's the active plant. Is that the right word? On DOSI, it's processing material, and so understanding that, because it is a big deal to getting some of the high contamination area in a safe configuration to get it offsite. And that has been critical and very important to the board. So that gets us to kind of the work plan. If you look on the back of page, I think it's page 4, you'll see 2 items. Our current guidance is the work plan technically is.
We got to see those.
So the current guidance is work plan is defined as where Jeremy's going to ask for recommendations. And these are the 2 recommendations he's going to ask for the board. One is on input on future iterations of the federal site life cycle estimate. What are our priorities as a board? And then board input on future funding. So that's kind of it on where we see this going, where you would like to see additional dollars. If we had more dollars, where you'd like to see it accelerated, fewer dollars, how we balance it out. What are the key things for you as a community, right? So those are the 2 areas that Jeremy is asking for us to provide advice back to him in a written form. Does that make sense? Questions on our plan for the year? Nice. So, a couple things. We live in a fantastic world that throws us curveballs all the time, right? That's why really smart people sell insurance, right? Because the world never works quite the way it's supposed to. Our work plan changes. It happens. Like schedules change, things pop up, things move, they slide. And so if we need to move stuff month to month, we'll communicate with you. But this is our intent at this point as we go forward. Sound good? Any questions? Lovely. All right. All right, so let's go back real quick to the executive committee vote. One of the most important things in looking at the vote is a wide distribution and seeing that, quite honestly, it tells us that there's a great group of people because everybody got a vote, right? Yeah, maybe you voted for yourself. I don't know. Maybe your mom came and voted for you. However it went, everyone had a slash by their name, and I think that's exciting, right? That means we have good people all around the table. So serving on the executive committee along with Donna and Herman will be Sam Brady, Chandler Grooms, and Lisa Pfeiffer. Thank you guys for your willingness to serve. All right, we're going to slide forward. Any questions on the executive committee? All right, we're going to slide forward to public comment now, Julie. All right, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we will have 2.5 minutes per person for public comment, meeting our 15-minute. Again, we encourage you to keep your comments within the scope of the Citizens Advisory Board. However, it is an open comment period. It is a public comment period, not a question and answer session, so we will not answer questions. When you have about 15 seconds left, I will designate that your time is almost expired and you could wrap up your comments, please. All right, first up on our list is Ms. Viner Colley.
I have some questions that I want to submit to the board for accountability. These questions are the gaskets used in the process building made of Teflon forever chemicals, and do they pose a radiation risk? The CRIC signs are still missing, which raise concerns about the effectiveness of the advisory board to addressing the community's concerns. We know that fish is radioactive in the Scioto River, and we know the Beaver Creek is contaminated since '92 now. We've been discussing this, so it's time to put those signs up in the creeks. Moreover, recent news about the board member arrest and the funding of the project with the county commissioners demands transparency and accountability. What the real story behind these issues was the surrounding area commissioners given money to put these waste cells here. That shouldn't be here at all because of the moisture and the ground hogs. But most of all, the largest aquifer in the Midwest under the site and the bedrock is fractured. I have been told most of Sinclair Broadcasting has sold out to BlackRock Incorporated. They are shareholders with Vanguard, who bought the school. And my question is, why would BlackRock be interested in buying a contaminated school plus buying a contaminated quarry down in Paducah, Kentucky? And I'm really concerned about the groundhogs digging into these waste cells.
Thank you, Vina. I appreciate your questions. And if you have a written, you got the written copy, okay, so we'll add that to the comments. Thank you. Next up, Ms. Pat Morita. You provided a written comment that will be in the minutes and provided to the board in the morning. So wanted to make sure that was noted for everyone that we have a written comment as well.
Okay, I was hoping that those would be in the board materials so that you could follow along, or if I don't get to it all, you can check it out. But so my statement should be in your materials. I came from Columbus, drove down here and back, and I just want to say that the board chair should be running these meetings and not the Department of Energy. And the board should be deciding how long we can have to speak. We understand that the National Advisory Board have requested the DOE nationwide to give members of the public at the SSAB meetings 5 minutes to speak at the various DM sites here. We've also requested that the meeting minutes and materials be put up on the website in a timely fashion and remain there. So we would like to really see, these are some interesting things that the DOE presented. They should be up on the website so the public can see them all. And then I want to comment too on the Acer. The Acer is what Dr. Ketterer read. And that is where he saw that these air monitors contain neptunium and other transuranics. And the Department of Energy was in that long report, but the Department of Energy kept very quiet and said nothing about it. And so it would be well advised for the advisory board to ask someone like Dr. Menuda, who's very capable of reading this Acer report, about what his comments are on it. And then he could advise you as to if there were really any problems in it. But since Eric first told us we had 5 minutes, after that first recommendation, which lasted, as I recall, for one meeting, and after that time, Eric has revised it down. 2 minutes is certainly not enough for one issue, let alone 2 or 3 that might come up in the several month period between SSAB meetings. And when only a few are here to speak, it's an insult to the public to have so little bit of time to give our information to the group, and it's really important. And then looking at the minutes, of what we have said.
20 seconds, Ms. Pat.
There are no resemblance to what we've said. The criticisms have been omitted and were attributed foolish and really meaningless statements are attributed to us. And I want to say there's no reason for a sane society to create nuclear weapons and this peaceful front of nuclear power. And we're all paying for it. Those jobs, we're all paying for it. And they want people, whether they're doing really hard labor or whether they're doing all this calculus and stuff, you can all go work for the DOE and get paid by the public.
Pat,
And
your
that's
time.
taking
Ms.
money.
Pat, thank you.
Okay, I just want to say that, please look at Dwayne Coleman's, latest video.
Yes, ma'am. There's a link in what you provided. We'll make sure you guys get that link to his video. Yes, ma'am. All right, Lee Blackburn also submitted a written statement.
And I assume that statement is not included in your package?
It will go out in the morning, yes, sir.
Okay,
As
and
protocol.
what I'm about to say is going to take about 4 minutes, so I hope I would beg your indulgence, since Greg and Jeremy went over. I think I have the right to go over as well. I initially joined this board in hopes of making a difference for Piketon and the surrounding communities. After all, the purpose of the board was to provide advice and recommendations to the Department of Energy on site-specific issues, including cleanup activities, waste management, and future land use. It soon became apparent, however, that DOE didn't care to listen to the advice of the board. So I, along with 2 other members, resigned in protest. Not that it mattered to DOE. They would continue to ignore the advice of the board and the community in their ongoing efforts to hide the truth. In 2017, DOE detected Neptunium-237 in an air monitor directly across from Zons Corner Middle School, yet didn't bother to tell the public until 2019. Then, in 2018, Americium-241 was found in that very same monitor, but once again, the public wasn't told until later in 2019. In April of 2019, Dr. Michael Ketterer, Professor Emeritus in Chemistry and Biochemistry from Northern Arizona University, tested dust samples from inside Zons Corner Middle School, revealing enriched uranium from the Portsmouth facility, ultimately leading to the school's closure. In a feeble attempt to counter the findings, a team from DOE snuck in over Memorial Day weekend, collecting samples that supposedly showed no radioactivity above naturally occurring background levels. I say supposedly because in 2024, the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, or ATSDR, released a report that said, according to DOE's own Pegasus data set, the air monitor directly across from Zons Corner Middle School showed both Neptunium-237 and Uranium-235 above naturally occurring background levels for the entire period from 2016 to 2020. Joe Mangano, the Executive Director of the Radiation and Public Health Project, who has completed dozens of epidemiological studies in locations throughout the U.S., has performed 3 separate studies of the Piketon area. In his latest study,
About 30 seconds.
last year, I'll continue. Mr. Mangano found the overall premature death rate from cancer of those between the ages of 0 and 74 in Pike County from 2021 to 2023 to be 81.8% higher than the national average, with the overall death rate of that very cohort to be 107.1% higher than the national average, or more than twice as high. On the other hand, ATSDR, which has never performed a single epidemiological study, concluded an epidemiological study in the Piketon area wasn't warranted. That's because ATSDR doesn't want to perform epidemiological studies, since doing so would reveal what Mr. Mangano found: higher cancer.
Lee, that's your time. Can you summarize the last couple paragraphs for me?
No, I'm going to continue to
No,
read.
your time is up, sir.
No, look,
Thank
you
you.
know, this is a public meeting.
No,
This is a
thank you.
public
Lee,
meeting.
please hand over the
No,
mic,
no.
sir.
So, that's why
Let him have.
Thank
This
you.
is absurd. This is absolutely absurd.
Okay, so we can choose to follow decorum for the rest of the meeting, or we can gavel and be done.
And then we are called undecorous when you rule against the public. And
Yes.
you, the DOE should not be running this meeting.
It's
We want
absurd.
we want to
Thank you,
hear from
lady.
the board chair that we can say our 4 minutes when we've come from.
Our
so
next
very
speaker
far.
is Miss Diana Cahill. Diana, if you
No,
would please come
before,
forward.
no, you wanted me to summarize, so I will summarize. Okay? I want to play something that was said in a conversation between Dwayne Pullman and Dr. Menuda when they were talking about midnight rockets. You know, maybe you're aware of what midnight rockets are, maybe not, but let me play it. This is Dwayne Pullman talking. Let me play that again.
Thank you. Those comments are in your written statement that we shared with the board.
We're disappointed that
Miss-
certain statements were supposed to be with the meeting minutes.
Miss
and they're
Diana,
not.
your
So
step,
the board should be able to,
Miss Diana,
the board
you're-
be able to
next,
follow along.
thank
with
you.
our- with
Miss
our
Diana?
statements.
I don't have anything nearly that explosive, I'm afraid. I just want to remind the board and the agency personnel there that, in my view anyway, most of the disastrous health effects in this community come from recycling and reprocessing. That's used reactor fuel taken out of the nuclear reactor, brought here, chopped up, and run through one more time to get the enriched uranium out of it that has been unused. And they're still doing that at Centrus. And my question to the board is, how is Centrus activity any safer than it was when they did recycling through the 3 plants that are now being dismantled? Aren't they sending the same toxics out into the community and causing the same illness? And what can be done about it?
Thank you, Ms. Cahill. I appreciate your comments. Next up, we have Gina Doyle. Ms. Gina, how are you this evening?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm well, thanks.
I have 2 things I want to talk about. First of all is on July 8th through 10th, there was something going on at the plant. I got a phone call. It said, get out there right now because something's going on. The concern was where my sister lives. There was something going on. There was this steam or smoke or something going up in the air and all the trucks and lights and everything. So I go over there expecting that I might have to help my sister and her husband evacuate. But no sirens, no anything was going on. We learned later, oh, it was a drill. We also learned during that time that there was something happening with the wastewater. This valve leaking and 50,000 gallons of water being released and running off into the creek and everything again. So that was the same date. It kind of made me think, why would you have a drill when there's something real going on and still no alerts? Does that make sense to anyone? Because it didn't me. Because my concern was, do I have to get my sister out of here? Their health is really bad, and they don't have anybody that can run over there and help them get out of their house, but me. The other thing is, what happens to the equipment that's used in the 333 where they can't get it clean? What happens to that? Who buys that equipment? And does the large equipment pieces become buried in the landfill or shipped out? I know you know. And if it's safe, then why, if during demo, then why are workers saying otherwise? because they still are. I would just like one time for somebody to just to turn and look at me when I talk, because I look at you guys and listen. And I would just like you to turn around and look at me and
You have
say,
about 15 seconds, Ms. Doyle.
what, you know, give an answer. If you can, give an answer. That's it.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate your comments. Ms. Lori Swain. Hello, Ms. Lori.
Hello, hello everyone. I notice that Brian Davis's name is no longer as a board member, and that's a really good thing, because as we all know, he's been indicted on 13 really serious felonies, stealing in office, corruption. He's been suspended as a commissioner, although he's still taking his salary and doing nothing. So it's really good that he's no longer on this board. If he's left a vacancy, it would really be good to replace it with someone from the community that's in relationship with the neighbors and the people that are impacted by the operations and the cleanup. I don't know how it happened that he's no longer on the board. Hopefully he was asked to resign. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Swain. And then, Dr. Menendez. How are you, sir?
Doing fine, thank you for asking. I've got 6 relatively short comments. Now, I'm addressing my first point specifically to Mike and Herman, because they go back to the time when I was working at the plant. So it tells us how old Mike and Herman are. Because in the 33 building, we did have plutonium. And so a specific question is in the demolition. Was the plutonium accounted for so that the activity going on now does not put the demolition workers at risk? Okay, second point, there are multiple isotopes of plutonium. And possibly the most significant one is plutonium-241, because that's the isotope that decays to americium-241 and to neptunium-237. I have never heard in a public forum in this community DOE telling us which radioactive decay cycle the neptunium comes from. Because PS, it doesn't come out of any known uranium decay cycle. Third point, in some of the discussion, we heard the word messaging. And I wrote in my notes, messaging versus facts. Because ultimately, that's what a lot of the public comments were about. What are the facts? I'm in court often enough as an expert witness that 3 of the most important amendments to the US Constitution are the 1st, the 5th, and the 14th. When you're silencing people, you're actually, congratulations, sir. All 3 of those amendments were violated. And I want that on the record so that when the heavyweights in DC listen to the tape, there's an awareness that you need to let us speak. All of us are guaranteed due process rights and the 5 freedoms in the First Amendment.
You have about 30 seconds.
Okay. Number 4.
You shouldn't be deciding. I'm sorry, Eric. Sorry.
In the estimations, there's actually a profession called estimation. Does DOE actually hire contract professional estimators to determine the costs associated with doing the demolition? 5th one, omnibus is generally a big bill that captures everything. We also have a possible government shutdown coming, and that may impact future budgets. Last point, based on the discussion we heard, quite often I'll go into Kroger or Walmart, and someone of my vintage will collar me, and for the next 20 or 30 minutes, I'm hearing about all the horrors that are going on at the plant. If I were made aware of some of this, I could be proactive rather than reactive. I don't like being reactive.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your comments. And that concludes our public comments for tonight. We appreciate everyone being here and thank you for your comments. All right, final thoughts from the board. Anything from you guys? Jeremy, Greg, anything? You guys good? Good. All right, so with that, thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for your participation. Donna? All right, thanks, guys. Have a good evening.
Yeah, I think it is.
And you said, yeah, tell her to shut up. And turn it
So I get